It looked perfect, too perfect. Silent walls, symmetrical windows, light falling exactly where it should. A house designed to impress and to calm the mind instantly. From the outside, it felt like safety, like order, like control. But what if that feeling wasn't accidental? What if every detail inside that house was placed there for a reason? Not just to look beautiful, but to influence behavior, to guide decisions, to shape the way people lived, without them ever realizing it. Because inside those elegant homes, something invisible was happening, something subtle, something precise. And once you see it, you won't be able to unsee it. In the late 19th century, France entered what historians would later call the Belle Époque, a time of apparent peace, rapid economic growth, and cultural brilliance. Paris was transformed. Wide boulevards replaced chaotic medieval streets. Buildings rose in perfect alignment. Facades followed strict patterns. Balconies repeated themselves with almost mathematical precision. Much of this transformation was driven by Georges-Eugène Haussmann, whose redesign of the city imposed a new visual order that had never existed before. And that order didn't stop at the streets. It entered the home. Inside these new residences, everything followed a logic. Rooms were arranged with intention. Furniture was positioned with care. Spaces were not random. They were structured. And to the human brain, that structure feels good. Cognitive psychology shows that symmetry and visual harmony create an immediate sense of safety. When something looks balanced, the brain relaxes. It stops questioning. It assumes everything is right. And that's where something important begins. Because when we stop questioning, we start accepting. At first, nothing seems unusual. There are no rules written on the walls, no instructions, no commands. And yet, everything inside those houses encourages a certain way of behaving. The large salons, bright, open, visible, become spaces of performance, where posture matters, where gestures are controlled, where people are constantly aware of being seen. Even silence feels intentional. Because in a space designed to be observed, behavior begins to adjust on its own. And the deeper you move into the house, the more subtle the structure becomes. Corridors guide movement. Doors separate functions. Private rooms shrink, become quieter, more contained. The house begins to dictate not what you must do, but what feels natural to do. Modern environmental psychology confirms something unsettling. Physical spaces influence how we think, how we move, and how we behave, often without conscious awareness. When pathways are defined, movement becomes predictable. When spaces are structured, behavior becomes consistent. And when behavior becomes consistent, it becomes automatic. This is the first layer of the system. Control is not imposed. It is embedded, not through force, but through repetition. The same movements, the same spaces, the same expectations, every single day. And the brain, designed to conserve energy, adapts. Neuroscience calls this process habituation. What is repeated becomes familiar. What becomes familiar stops being questioned. And what is no longer questioned becomes invisible. That's how influence begins. Quietly, without resistance, without awareness. And inside those houses, people believed they were simply living their lives. But in reality, they were already being shaped. And from the outside, everything still looked perfect. At first, no one noticed. Nothing felt imposed. There were no strict rules being announced, no authority reminding people how to behave. And yet, everything inside the house followed a pattern, a rhythm, a silent choreography that repeated itself every day. Morning, movement, reception, presence, withdrawal, again and again and again. Each room had a function. But more than that, each room carried an expectation. The grand salons were not just spaces. They were stages, large, bright, open to view, mirrors reflecting every movement. light exposing every detail. In those rooms, nothing was hidden, and when nothing is hidden, people begin to adjust. Posture straightens, gestures become measured, voices soften, even laughter becomes controlled. Not because someone demanded it, but because the space itself demanded it. Furniture was carefully arranged, not for comfort, but for positioning. Chairs aligned to face one another at precise angles, tables placed to guide conversation, distances calculated to control interaction. You didn't sit anywhere. You sat where the space allowed you to, and slowly, without realizing, your behavior followed. Modern environmental psychology explains something critical. When an environment defines structure, the brain seeks to adapt to it as quickly as possible, because adaptation reduces effort, and the brain always chooses efficiency. So instead of resisting the structure, people aligned with it, automatically, naturally, silently. And the deeper one moved into the house, the more subtle the control became. Corridors were not just passages, they were filters. They directed movement, limited choices, reduced randomness. You didn't wander, you followed paths. Doors separated not only spaces, but behaviors, public from private, visible from hidden, acceptable from inappropriate, and without needing explanation. Everyone understood, because repetition teaches faster than instruction. This is where the system deepens. Control is no longer about space, it becomes about time. How long you stay, where you pause, when you speak, when you withdraw. Everything begins to follow an invisible script. And the most powerful part? No one feels controlled, because nothing feels forced. Neuroscience calls this habituation, the process by which repeated exposure turns behavior into automatic response. The brain stops evaluating, stops questioning, stops resisting. It simply follows what is familiar, and what is familiar becomes normal. That's how the system stabilizes, not through pressure, but through repetition. And once repetition is established, resistance disappears. The residents believed they were choosing their actions, choosing how to sit, how to speak, how to behave. But in reality, those choices had already been shaped, defined long before they even entered the room. This idea echoes something ancient. Aristotle once said that we are what we repeatedly do. But there is something deeper hidden in that idea. If repetition defines who we are, then whatever controls repetition controls us. And inside those houses, repetition was everywhere, in movement, in silence, in presence, in absence. It didn't need to be enforced, because it was already embedded. And that is the moment where the system becomes almost impossible to see, because it no longer feels like a system. It feels like life, natural, obvious, correct. And that's exactly why no one questioned it. From the outside, the house appeared unified. One structure, one family, one life. Everything aligned, everything in order. Everything perfect. But inside, it was divided, not by walls you could easily see, but by something far more precise. Hierarchy. Every level of the house carried meaning. Every floor defined a role. And the higher you looked, the more hidden the truth became. The lower levels were designed for display. Grand entrances, reception rooms filled with light, mirrors reflecting elegance from every angle. These were the spaces where identity was performed, where the family existed in its most refined version. Every gesture observed, every detail controlled, everything communicating status, power, stability. But as you moved upward, something changed. The ceilings lowered, the light faded, the air felt heavier. Beauty began to disappear. And at the very top, just beneath the roof, were the chambres de bonne, small, cramped, often no more than a few square meters, cold in winter, suffocating in summer. Barely furnished, barely visible. This was where the invisible lived. The servants, the workers, the people who sustained the illusion below. They moved through the house constantly, but rarely appeared within its visible life. Because the house was designed to prevent that. Separate staircases, narrow passages, hidden doors, entire circulation systems built not for convenience, but for invisibility. You could live in that house and never truly see the people who made your life possible. And when something is not seen, it is not questioned. Modern social psychology explains this clearly. When individuals are placed inside structured hierarchies, they begin to internalize their position over time, not through force, but through repetition, through routine, through silent reinforcement. The role becomes familiar, the familiar becomes accepted, and acceptance becomes identity. That's how the system expands, not only shaping behavior, but shaping self-perception. The servant no longer feels temporarily placed. They feel naturally positioned. The elite no longer sees privilege. They see order. And once both sides accept the structure, it becomes invisible. This idea echoes something deeply rooted in classical thought. Aristotle describes society as a system where each part fulfills a function. But there is a hidden danger in that idea. When functions become fixed, they stop being roles and start becoming limits, invisible boundaries that define not just where you are, but who you are allowed to be. Inside these houses, two realities existed at the same time: the visible and the hidden, the elegant and the functional, the life that was displayed and the life that made it possible. They shared the same structure, the same walls, the same roof, but not the same experience. One lived in light, the other in confinement. And yet, neither resisted, because the human mind seeks coherence. It prefers order over contradiction, even when that order is unequal. Over time, the division stopped feeling strange. It became expected, necessary, even justified, because once a system is repeated long enough, it no longer feels like a system. It feels like reality. And that is the most dangerous moment, when hierarchy doesn't need to be enforced anymore, because no one is looking for it. And still, from the outside, the house remained beautiful. The illusion held, because no one looked too closely. From a distance, everything felt refined, disciplined, effortless. But daily life inside those houses was far from comfortable. There was no central heating, not as we understand it today. Warmth came from fireplaces, isolated, limited. One room could feel warm, while the rest of the house remained cold. Corridors felt like stone. Bedrooms held the night inside them. Water left in basins could freeze before morning. And still, no one complained, because they adapted. Layers of clothing replaced comfort. Doors stayed closed to preserve heat. Movement became strategic. You didn't walk through the house freely. You moved carefully, conserving warmth. And over time, the cold stopped feeling unusual. Not because it disappeared, but because the mind adjusted. Bathing was no different. Not a daily ritual. Not because cleanliness lacked importance, but because the process was demanding. Water had to be carried, heated, prepared. Every bath required effort, time, planning, so habits changed. What was once a luxury became occasional, and what seems uncomfortable today felt normal then. Light shaped everything. Before electricity became widespread, illumination came from candles and gas lamps. Soft, flickering, unstable, beautiful, but limited. Shadows filled the corners of every room. Darkness was never fully pushed away. Night extended itself, not as absence of light, but as presence, a constant presence. And the house was never entirely visible. But again, no one resisted. Because the human brain is built to adapt. Neuroscience explains this clearly. When a condition repeats itself consistently, the brain reduces its emotional response to it. This process is called habituation. Discomfort becomes familiar. The familiar becomes neutral. And what is neutral becomes invisible. That's what happened inside those homes. The cold stopped being harsh. The darkness stopped being limiting. The effort required for daily life stopped feeling excessive. Not because reality improved, but because perception changed. People were not living in comfort. They were living in adaptation. And adaptation can easily be mistaken for acceptance. This idea echoes the thinking of Friedrich Nietzsche. He suggested that humans can endure almost any condition, as long as they assign meaning to it. And inside those houses, meaning was everywhere. Endurance became strength, restraint became elegance, discipline became identity. Discomfort was no longer a problem, it became a virtue. And once discomfort becomes a virtue, it stops being questioned. It becomes something to preserve, something to defend, something to embody. That's when the system reaches a deeper level. Because now, people are not just adapting to it, they are sustaining it, protecting it, reinforcing it, without realizing. The house no longer needed to provide comfort, it only needed to provide meaning, and meaning is far more powerful. From the outside, nothing had changed. The symmetry remained, the beauty remained, the illusion remained intact. But inside, something had already shifted. People were no longer just living within the system, they had become part of it. And in the end, nothing needed to be hidden anymore. Because the system had already been accepted, not imposed, not enforced, but absorbed. What once looked like comfort was structure. What looked like elegance was discipline. What felt like freedom was expectation. And by that point, no one needed to be told how to behave, because the rules were no longer outside. They were inside. Every gesture became calculated, every word filtered, every reaction adjusted before it could even be seen, not out of fear, but out of habit. Psychology calls this internalization, when external systems become part of identity. People begin to regulate themselves, even when no one is watching, even when no one is judging. They anticipate expectations. They correct themselves in advance. They become both the observer and the observed. That is the true mechanism. The house was never just a place to live. It was a behavioral framework, a system designed to align individuals with expectations, without ever appearing to control them. There were no chains, no visible force, and yet, deviation became rare, because the system did something far more powerful than punishment. It made deviation feel unnatural. And when something feels unnatural, we avoid it, without question. This idea resonates with the philosophy of Jean-Paul Sartre. He argued that we often see ourselves through the eyes of others. And when that happens, we stop being who we are, and start becoming who we are expected to be. Inside those houses, there were always eyes, guests, family, servants, society itself, and under constant perception, identity became performance. At the same time, Marcus Aurelius wrote that life is shaped not by events, but by how we interpret them. And that is why the system worked so perfectly. Nothing needed to change externally, only interpretation needed to be guided. If rigidity was called discipline, it felt honorable. If control was called order, it felt necessary. If silence was called elegance, it felt refined. Language softened reality, and reality adapted to language. That's why, even today, we look at those houses and imagine something peaceful, luxurious, effortless. But the truth is more complex, because beneath that beauty, there was a system, not built to harm, but to shape, not designed to imprison, but to align. And it succeeded. Not because it forced obedience, but because it made obedience feel natural. That is why the illusion was so powerful. Because it didn't depend on deception. It depended on agreement. Everyone saw the same structure. Everyone followed the same patterns. And no one felt the need to question it, not because nothing was wrong, but because everything felt right. And that is the final truth. Those houses were never just places to live. They were environments that quietly decided how life should be lived. If this story changed the way you see the world, leave a like and subscribe for more deep dives into the hidden layers of history. Thanks for watching.